Salam sejahtera, salam bangsa Malaysia kepada semua rakan-rakan. Terima kasih kerana bersama kita pada malam ini untuk Siri Dialog Bangsa Malaysia, Wawasan Masyarakat India. Terima kasih banyak tanpa menengahkan masa. Nama saya Nathaniel Tan, saya dari Projek Bangsa Malaysia, Projek Wawasan Rakyat. Saya tak akan mengambil masa banyak, saya akan serahkan kepada moderator kita pada malam ini, Saudara Hamid Singh. Dipersilakan Tuan.
Thank you so much, Nat. I'm very happy to be the moderator today, and I'm very, very proud of our panelists today. Some absolute legends we have here. I'd like to first introduce Mr. Arul from Parti Socialist Malaysia, who's been on the scene for a very long time. Just about anyone who knows anyone knows Arul, right? And then we've got Mr. Arumugam from the Tamil Foundation as well, Grandmaster of the Indian cause in Malaysia. Kavita from Majlis Belia Malaysia, who's doing a great job herself as well. Gurpreet Singh from Gerakan Belia Sikh Malaysia. And finally, Selvamalar from the My Shields Foundation. Right. So on to it. Let me get to the first question. What do you think are the major challenges faced by the Indian community in Malaysia? Mr. Arul, if you can you go first?
You should start with Mr. Arumugam. He's the...
Okay, sure thing. Mr. Arumugam.
Yeah. He can lay out the foundation, then we can come in. Yeah.
Actually, I was expecting you to do the job, Arul, so that I can kind of listen to all your grassroots experiences and really understanding deeper of the Indian issues.
This is an example for everyone on Facebook. This is an example of how nice these people are. Okay, so Mr. Arul, why don't you go ahead first?
Okay, I think okay, thank you, Armit. I think this issue, Bangsa Malaysia, the topic itself is actually very, to a certain generation, is very controversial, because when the National Unity Program was started after the NEP in 1971, there was this whole sloganing of Bangsa Malaysia. But then the argument was then, Bangsa Malaysia, the three ingredients of Bangsa Malaysia is mainly the Malay race, Islamic values. So I think because of those reasons, I think we have a very serious issues lah. Okay, so I think if you look back into the in the constitution, of course the Indians in Malaysia are of course under the Article 153, they are recognized, that the king has to take care of the interests of the Malays as well as the non-Malays, So I think the Raid Commission and all that, But then this whole question about Bumi Putra, the feeling of discrimination, alienation, all this came about, I think, quite more seriously after 1971, after 69, the racial thing. And then you have further reinforcement of the policies, such as scholarships, government's job opportunities, and all that. So for me, it's a very big issue lah. I think the Indian community is stuck in two things. Number one, in one part, the Indian community wants to be known as the third biggest race, ethnic group. So they said everything you must give us something, Another part of them says we are minority, And most of the time we forget those in Sabah and Sarawak, the Iban, Kadazan and all that. We are very Semenanjung centric. And we want to be known as the minority, but at a certain time, we want to be the third largest race. That means whatever you do, you don't forget us, you know. So I think this is one big dilemma which faces. And another serious issue, I think, is the whole question of what the economics lah, you know. I think any race is the economic. If you see like today, the difference between Chinese schools and Tamil schools maybe because Chinese is a world superpower, you know, China, you know, and of course, Chinese schools, people will tend to send their children to Chinese school. It's a very different scenario to Tamil schools. I don't know about Punjabi schools. I have those days. I know Guru Nana, Ipoh, my area there. There's one school, but I'm saying that, you know, that so today so if you don't have this economic power base, then the community will rely a lot on the government, you know. So I think, so always the view is that the Chinese community, they're not really worried if they don't get government jobs, you know, if they don't get jobs in government or they don't get places in the universities, maybe they will be thinking, okay, their community is built in such a way that they are self-sustained. But the Indian community, I think, a lot of the struggle of NGOs have been to ask government to ensure that Tamil education is you know, safeguarded, places for job opportunities for Indians, you know. So I think I'm just laying out the issues lah. Okay, I'm not really a big advocate, you know. I'm more maybe my experience more on working on plantation workers, urban poor, dealing with questions of death in custody, you know, this kind of things, you know. So I think maybe I'll stop here. Maybe other friends here can just open up the discussion further.
But thank you, Mr. Arul. I think you have introduced the topic perfectly, you know, talking about our race relations, right, from NEP and NUP onwards. And I took two things as well. Our identity, firstly. We have a dilemma between being a third largest race while also being a minority and also being a diaspora community. That on its own is a problem. And the second, the problem of economics. We don't have a private school machine, or we don't have a private system machinery that can support us. But what about you, Mr. Arumugam? What do you think is the main challenge that face the Indians in Malaysia or Malaysian Indians?
I think Arul has kind of summed up the core identity of the Indians in Malaysia. But I think we need to historically look back of the Indian history first. Indians were brought into Malaya from the beginning as a kind of a labor force. So they actually became largely settled in the plantations or estates those days. So large segment of the Indian population are basically laborers from the colonial period. So when we gained independence, there was a kind of a tricky situation in the sense that those Indians who actually went along with the identity politics are the middle class and the upper class Indians. And the Indians at the grassroots level were represented more by the unions. Unions are those people who really wanted to organize the labor against the either its plantations owned by the British or Malaysians later. So there was a shift in the kind of arguments how Indians in this country are developed into a kind of a community. So the post-independence period, actually, it was an awakening period. And of course, with UMNO, the MIC was formed, and it was some kind of a political gathering of Indians to put their stamp into the drafting constitutions as an identity, part of identity in the constitution. That's how we became like Indians and not Malaysians, Indians, Malays, Chinese, and other races. So the post period of when the country underwent development, like Arul stated, from 1970 onwards, particularly the new economic policy was introduced basically to address the inequality among all races. If you look at the NEP, it actually doesn't talk about race or religion or ethnicity. But however, the policy implementations by amendment to the constitutions largely targeted self-help measures for the Bumiputras. So what happened after that, I think you know. So there were some kind of system established by the government, some kind of quota system through which some handouts were actually given out to the Indians and maybe also to the Chinese and largely to the Malays. So this kind of development, that unequal allocation of resources by the government to the Malaysians at large is identified by means of race. Therefore, we practice the system of what usually we term as identity politics in channeling the resources of the nation. So that we have gone through over the years, and now we have developed into a new society where the elites are from all the races and poverty groups are largely with the Malays and the Indians, and I don't know, there are also Chinese poverty and other minority groups. So that is the current status. Maybe as we go along, then we can discuss more about all these.
Sometimes I only wonder, what if PP Narayan instead of Tun Sembendan was the leader of the Indian community? What if we had the Pelembagaan Rakyat, with instead of the Pelembagaan that we have now? It's amazing. We may not even organize our society through race. It might be through class or something else. Something to think about. Kavita?
Sorry, I think Arul and myself will differ strongly on that perspective, but we have it for another debate.
No. I think Harmeet, you got it correct. It's not PP Narayanan because it is people like Veerasenan, Ganapati, the 1947 constitution. PP Narayanan was very pro-British. You would have supported. You wouldn't have supported Pelembagaan Rakyat.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry. This is
okay.
an example of
It's okay.
We have here today. But yes, on to you, Kavita.
Okay. So I totally agree how Mr. Arul and also Mr. Arumugam have actually introduced or opened up this topic. So I would like to, when we talk about the Indian community in Malaysia, when you actually delve deep into it, we can identify there are actually so many layers and so many problems that's underlying within the Indian community, and that is actually left each problems are coming in and we just leave it unresolved. So some of the pointers I'd like to highlight here is that one of it is that absence of community spirit, wealth, lack of opportunity, lack of education, and also social status or caste differences. So when it comes to Indian community, so I would say the main reason why we are not prospering or we don't have that positivity as much as we had as those people in Malaysia is because of lack of community spirit. We tend to have this mentality saying that if I can't have it, then the rest not going to have it. So as long as we going to move on like this, and this will be the biggest challenge where we have to overcome. And also, if you're going to delve into the second part of it, where we say that wealth part of it, there are so many Indians, we still fall under the poverty line and even lower than that. Most of them, we don't even have a proper IC. And that is actually quite sad because I've been hearing this issue about no IC or no proper documentation since I was in secondary school. 18 years has passed. I'm 31 now. And Indians are still having this problem of not having IC or no proper documentation. So why are we still facing this problem? So that the next part of it, I would delve into is that because of lack of education where the parents, where they don't emphasize their children to actually to highlight the importance that education is important. And that will be the greatest stepping stone, or it will help them to open up so many opportunities and gates for them in future. And they are at the same time as well, Indian community, they are less informed community, and they blindly trust others who say that they will help them, but end up they get cheated at the end of the day. So they should be getting all the news from the right sources. instead of trusting another friend or another person who claimed to come and help them. So we will be able to tackle all these challenges. And the next part would be the social status or caste differences. Until now, we are still differentiating. Although we are called as Indians, as the overall community as Indians, and sadly to say, we are no longer the third largest population. We are 6%, and the foreigners, they stand at 7%. So the foreigners, they are the third largest community in Malaysia. That is sad to say. And so when even among our Indians, we tend to like differentiate. So sometimes, probably this is already like embedded since we were young. The elders, they teach us how do you identify another person, how do you actually judge another person based on their names or from their actually a caste or their social status. This should actually be stopped. And the moment, okay, now for example, the common question that I face is that when I say Kavita, so they know I'm Indian, they want to know more. Sometimes they ask me a question like, are you a Malayali or are you Telugu? Why do you need to know that? So you know I'm an Indian, so you just should stop there rather than you investigating about a person for you to actually you separating them into, we are already smaller groups. Why do we need to separate each and every one of us into tiny groups? I don't understand that point. So these are some of the points I would like to highlight here today.
I think that's very interesting. I mean, it's all a construct anyway, right? And how we have now been lumped together as Indians,
Yeah.
and such a small community. But it's also interesting, you know, we talk about like how there are systems that do not support this community, but also within this community, we sometimes do not support each other.
Yes.
Right? Gurpreet, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, I think if we were to, I would like to start off by just saying that we are like an orphan child, or a child that is not given enough attention. My father is very worried about what is happening in India. My mother is very worried about what is happening to my elder brother and my younger sister, and nobody is looking at me. And so I'm conflicted. I'm wondering, am I supposed to listen to my father when he talks about India and the politics in India and go that way and be concerned about that? Or should I be listening to my mother who is telling me all the problems that she's having with my elder brother and my younger sister? And I'm stuck. And I go into this world, I go outside of my house and I don't see anybody that is like me. I don't identify with anybody that is like me. Nobody talks my language. Nobody speaks my language. Nobody even knows my story. Some people are like a lot of people are like my elder brother, who thinks that this is their home, and a lot of people are like my younger sister, who are not worried about this country, about this home anymore. They for them it doesn't matter anymore, and I'm here stuck in the middle, always trying my best to please my mother and my father. And that is the state of the Indian community. I would like to say personally, we do not have an identity. We don't know. A couple of months ago, there was the farmers' protest in India, and a lot of people in the Punjabi community were, very gung-ho. And somebody asked me, Gurpreet, what is your take? I am not concerned at all. It does not affect me because India is not my country. But how am I to say this outrightly? Because I am known as an Indian in this country. So you have to swallow it, and you have to say that, yes, we do it. Of course, on a humanity level, it's a different story. But we are lost. And I think that is for me, I know, Arul and Arumugam are already, and Kavita and MBM are already tackling so many big issues that for me, I think the main thing I want to concentrate on, or I want to point out, is that we are lost in this identity crisis. The Indian community doesn't know where we belong. Where do we belong? And I love what Arul was talking about identity just now, and how the education system, divides us further. And yeah, this discussion is great. And I think my point throughout the night is going to be, pushing this thing where we need to find a space for ourselves, somewhere where we are comfortable. Not like the second child syndrome in the family, he doesn't know where he belongs. Am I here? Am I there? Where am I? Yeah.
It is. it's very often we talk about welfare and we talk about the most serious concerns, right? We don't even have time to think about this ideology. But when you think about it, this inherent contradiction kills us sometimes. And when you look at our history, the labor trends, the migrant trends, how do we reconcile all of this? Nobody seems to be leading that or asking that question. All right, on to you, Selvamalar.
Hello, hi. I think I'm a newcomer. So anyway, my expression, my comments is purely mine. So it doesn't reflect anybody's opinion, or you can just blast me on the comment box. I don't mind, but I just want to say, I want to speak from my heart. And I would like to use the lingo that goes to heart rather than goes to head. I think I have 4 pointers here. One is actually, I think we have lost self-respect. I think that's very big. One of the most biggest challenges is we have lost self-respect, and we just don't respect, and we don't have self-dignity. We have lost it. And look at our history; it's a rich history, and we have done. I don't know. I don't want to start from Parameswara and stuff like that. Chola. I don't want to touch anything, but our root is so damn strong, but we have lost it. That's one. And I don't know. Of course, what Mr. Aru said is right. Asset fragmentation, blah, blah, this, divide and rule, British. Okay, that is past. But we have still lost it. Of course, the next question is, we don't have it in us, the grit. Okay, or do you need people to cultivate that self-respect to you? But if we need to, who's going to do it? That's the first question. So the second pointer is, I personally feel that we all have got this insecure feeling somewhere in every one Indian in Malaysia. I may be wrong. I had that, insecure, whether if I score straight A's, will I get a university? Will I get a job? Will I get a promotion? Even if you're a technician, can I secure the contract? So you have insecure everywhere. When it comes to applying for documentation, like Kavita has said, when you apply, I don't think they will give me, I'm gone, I won't get my IC, I think my life is gone, I won't get job. So insecure everywhere. So when you have that insecure feelings, you can't move. I personally feel like you're already putting a block in front of you. You can't move forward already. That's two. Okay, and of course, the next question is, why these insecure feelings came? From where? What is the root cause? That's something else. But there is some insecurity in you. Okay, that's two. And number three is B40 stigma. Before B40 term came about, no one talked about poor Indians. Let me be very frank here. One government comes out with a blueprint document to say these are the challenges. We have compiled everything based on the statistics. Whether the statistics are right or wrong, that's secondary. But at least we have got a government document to say these are the challenges. Another government comes in and doesn't want to touch the book blueprint. What are you trying to do? You are supposed to touch the blueprint and find out what are the challenges that Indians are facing. You don't want to touch it as though it is infected by coronavirus. I don't know. And the third government comes in and says, let's discuss about it. We are all lost. What happened to the blueprint? We are not going to question which prime minister released the blueprint. I'm not interested in that. I think every Malaysian Indian are not interested in that. We don't care. We just want you to open up that blueprint, the bloody blueprint, open up and see what are the challenges. All the challenges in the blueprint is from the grassroots. Because I'm speaking from my experience. Been working about 15, 16 years. I come from a low-cost flats myself. I had that insecure feeling, but I fought it. Like your community, Harmeet Singh and Gurpreet Singh, 120,000 in Malaysia. You guys, where are you? 30 years ago, you came in as Gurkha and Guts. Where are you now? You are doing so well. That is my fourth point. Disunited. We don't have that in our community. We are so disunited, man. This party, that party. Nobody wants to look into, excuse me, this is the problem. Let's be part of the solution. Nobody is interested. Everybody is interested in who's doing what. He can't do this. I must do it. I must get the reputation. No, bloody hell, that's a problem. Let's all sit down together and get united and solve it. Nobody wants to do that. So at the end of the day, if you ask me, challenges, I can give you chapters and chapters of Indian challenges. And the final one, the most important one, which I forgot to elaborate just now, is the B40 stigma. This B40 stigma has really affected the Indian community as a whole. A middle-class person or a top 20 Indian they don't want to recognize themselves as a powerful Indian. You know why? Because they know they don't want to be labeled as Indian anymore. They don't feel proud in speaking their language anymore. Reason being, there are so many reasons. You know why? Because they know that B40 stigma has given a label to the overall Indian community. Gangster, India gangster, India mabo, India mabo, India gangster. This is actually concerning custodial deaths. These are all concerning the B40 population, B40 community. So when it's affecting the B40 community, overall, an Indian doesn't want to relate to the problems because, oh my God, Indian again. I tell you, man, you know, this Indian fella who's a lawyer, who's doing so well, not Mr. Aru, they'll be saying, my God, these Indian fellas, I tell you, this is what they do. La. See, look at the gangster fellas. Oh my God, another custodial. I'm going to transfer to, I'm going to migrate to Australia. I'm going to migrate to Canada. You see, this is the typical, see, again, we have no self-respect. Whether we want to be part of problem or part of solution, it's all in our hands. Because I've been working personally, I started off my session by saying, it's my personal view. I started off from the B40 community, been working with the B40 community. So that stigma is very strong. Cultural, their ignorance, they don't want to respond to help, dependent mentality, they love goodies, they love handouts, lazy, you name it. People label, people judge. But that B40 stigma is actually attached to the overall Indian community. So that indirectly affects our perspective and our perceptions. So basically, I see these are the main challenges from my view. And I think maybe some people may disagree, some people may agree, but this is my personal view. Thank you so much.
I think many, if there are Indians watching today, I think they will identify with this, because at the end of the day, the Malaysian Indian experience and struggle, berpecah tiada, right? Our story is a story of struggle. And when you look at all of our struggles for a very long time, right, one can only question. It is not hard to imagine that we do not have the self-respect. You know, why are we not proud of ourselves? Why can't we express ourselves in a comfortable way? I don't have the answer to that. I would like for us to discuss this further, but just some brief thoughts about you know, disproportionately being poor, our conditions in estates, the disproportionate amount of deaths of Indians in custody, for example. These are all just symptoms of this lack of self-respect. How do we understand this, Mr. Arumugam?
Sorry, what were you? Which part of it you want me to?
Right. So how do we understand? Firstly, the reality that shows us that we are, in some way, lesser, and also an inner feeling of not having self-respect.
Okay, I think we should be grateful to Selvamalar, because Selvamalar has a very hands-on experience with the Indian community, because previously she worked with people who were doing research on that area, and also she's part of the team which involved in the development of the Malaysian Indian blueprint. We are fortunate to have Selvamalar here, because I think she can share a lot of her personal experiences related to the Indian community. Okay, coming to your question about that compactness of how we look at Indians as a issue-based community. This argument is a bit difficult to construct theoretically, but I would like to buy the argument on the basis that there is a development of an underclass. Underclass definition differs from poverty-based Indians or poor Indians or neglected. Underclass means a class of people living within a socio-economic structural system in which they are incapable of liberating themselves out of that underclass consciousness, just because you give them motivation, just because you give them money, just because you pay for the bus fare. It's impossible to do that. So the underclass Indians constitute a kind of a critical mass currently. So they dwell within them the various socioeconomic issues that directly impact them over the years. This is also largely got to do with the time in, time out, how they were actually taken as a vote bank and cheated through elections after elections, politicians after politicians. So this group of people were they are not lazy, they are extremely hardworking. Like if you take a rubber tapper, when I calculated those days working with Arul, and we actually went into the rubber estates to actually tap or help out the palm oil harvesting, just to experience the toil of labor, how intense it can be. So they were actually extremely hardworking people. So if you look at the plantation itself from the 70s, when fragmentation came into place, when these plantation companies started to sell the land, these people were just evicted out of the plantations in which they actually lived as a community. There was a community. They had a temple, they had a union, and they had a football club. They lived as a community. Nice, very, those from plantations, they will appreciate how they lived in the 60s and 70s. When fragmentation came about, and these people are just evicted from the plantations and they were pushed into the urban settlements. When they came into the urban settlements, these are kind of people who were broken up from their livelihood-based living to a kind of a labor-intensive lifestyle in the urban squatters along the railway lines or roadsides, all over the place in the town areas. So when these people came, their culture degraded to a different level altogether. They have to look into. Of course, here I must say that not every Indian had the inborn ability to survive and rely on their skills and fight and come out. There are a lot of Indians came out, and that left behind a sizable segment of them, which if you read some of the historians who classifies as reason due to cultural aspects of how these communities actually live. So that developed a group of people, which currently we are trying to appreciate and understand, even like Denison Jayasuriya, who has been doing a lot of work on this area of studying people living in low-cost flats and looking into their family structure. He says direct intervention is needed. So the direct intervention is not a difficult task. In fact, Malar would also agree with me that because she's involved in My Skills Foundation, where they bring in children from real broken families to uplift them, the task is very, very high, because you practically have to keep them under your custody to just change one person from just a lowest level to slightly skilled level. So this is a process which massive investment of human resources as well as financial resources need to be deployed to move these underclass Indians from the current status to the higher level. This requires a lot of studies and specific targeted programs to move. Otherwise, we are structurally not looking at them, but rather individually and emotionally and categorically, like stating that, okay, these are gangsters. Of course, they are gangsters, because gangsterism actually yields immediate results. They can collect protection money, they can get money, they can spend, and they can just enjoy their life. It's okay, I go to jail and come back. So these issues, if you want to really address, then we need to really go into the underclass phenomenon of their residents and how we can create programs or projects to deal with each one of those issues. This is a bit complex issue. Yeah.
The thought that comes to mind is hegemony. You know, there is an entire system that has created this underclass, and these people are struggling to survive. And you know, the help is not needed. You know, the help is not seen. It's not coming to us. But let me go on to the second question. Maybe you can start off, Kavita. Do Indians feel valued in Malaysia for their contributions in building this country?
Quick answer, I would say no. Indians, they they don't feel they are valued in this country. There are so many examples I can give. One of it is that um, that has been decaying the
Sorry, I think we may have lost Kavita for a bit. Let's just give her a second to reconnect. Kavita, all okay?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, all good now. Sorry, guys. So sorry. So I repeat again. So the quick answer is no. They don't feel valued is because in our nation, the decaying problem, I would say, is discrimination. So I faced my first discrimination when I was in kindergarten. And so that is the main thing, is that they will call us keleng, or just because of your skin color, just because you're darker, you're seen differently. And even at opportunities, even for a simple performance at school, the priority or focus is given to the majority group and not to the minority. So from there, you can see there's a lot of division even at school level. And then so that's how the primary years go. And in secondary school, so we will get to see the students from Tamil school come in. Immediately, Tamil school students are discriminated by putting them into Peralehan. So that's how they divide them. And then later, when it comes to even sports, or even in class, you are actually taught to just be in this rat race. You have to score, you have to get this really good score, and for you to be in the first class. And even the Indian community, the Indian parents, you always have to score this top high marks. You have to get 90 and above, or you must get this A plus plus for you to be good. So that's how you are valued. But these students who came from this Tamil schools, who are completely divided and put into this Peralihan class, and the psychological thing that has affected them, it has brought to them to how they have grown up till now. Now, to what Mr. Arumugam have said just now, the fragmentation, how it actually happened. So imagine the kind of situation or the kind of mental torture that they had to go through to understand, because they came from India here to serve in this country, and then they thought that this is going to be my country, we developed it, we're going to start a new family. But then they will break apart from the community, and then they push to another place. So the kind of struggle and the mental torture that they go through, I think it affects me now. I think I understood what they went through. And the same thing happened to Indian students who were pushed to Peralihan class. And often these students, they will not given any opportunity. They will not be pengawas, or they will not be given, or they even have a quota system even at school level. Oh, we have too many Malay pengawas already, so we should have someone from Chinese, someone from Indian. Why do you need to do that? You have to give equal opportunity to everybody, to those who deserve it. Why do you need to bring quota system? Malaysia should understand that bringing in quota system doesn't mean diversity or inclusivity. It's nothing like that. Quota system doesn't prove that. As long as you give the people, regardless of their race, regardless of their background, you recognize them for the contribution or for the things that they have achieved, I think that will help to eliminate so many problems and so many discrimination that we are facing in the community as well. And also, I would say the reason why we don't feel valued is also because for so many years in school textbooks, they have highlighted how Mohandas and Maheendran have conquered Everest, the first Malaysian to have conquered Everest. But over the years, all this knowledge or all this information have been altered. In a year 3 BM textbook, they are highlighting a point. They highlighted another Malay boy saying it as the youngest Malaysian to conquer Everest. Why do you need to bring a new information when all these years we were taught that Mohandas and Mahendra were the first Malaysians, and we are being introduced with another point that a young Malaysian, this is the youngest Malaysian, a Malay boy who have climbed Mount Everest, and even Parameswara's name is being erased. And so many researchers, even in our country, sadly to say, that just recently I was having a discussion with this renowned person in the country. I don't want to mention his name. He came up and questioned, do you Indians know what is your history? Y'all don't even exist here. All your, what? He said the Kedah history, he said we no longer recognize that. When he questioned that to us Indians, or when you're going to ask the rest of the Indians, can they tell their history? Can they even tell their great grandfather's name? They don't even know who's their great grandfather. So that's how bad it is. It's very important for Indians to know their history and for you to really understand that you're valued. Even if these other people are going to tell you, you know what, you are not being valued here. We are not going to give you all these things that you're demanding. But as long as we are strong and we know where we come from, what we are capable of, they'll be able to tackle this. But not many of us have that strength. So it's definitely a long way for us to go.
I think the engine of socialization, right? The school,
Mm.
the entire process.
Yep.
We are second, or we feel second at the very least.
Yeah.
So how is it? Are we supposed to escape, or once we graduate from the system, to feel equal?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right. But Gurpreet, do you have anything to add in terms of Indians feeling valued for their contributions in nation building?
Just a point there that you mentioned. I didn't feel second in school. I didn't feel discriminated in school. I felt discriminated by what happens to me after school. I don't feel discriminated in school, but I feel discriminated that I don't get into the university. My results is good. That's the thing. It's not in school I'm okay, because kids are innocent. Kids are not born like this. We are all okay. We do not. I didn't feel any discrimination. But coming back to your point about whether we are valued, I just want to. It's a very good question to ask ourselves. Do we really need to feel valued? Like everybody else in the world, in other countries, do they feel valued? Do their government make them feel valued? If the answer is yes, then of course we are not, because Malaysia. I just want to share with you all a little bit of insight. So the people from India, the Punjabi Indians that come to work in Malaysia, they use Malaysia as a stamping passport ground so that they can go to Canada. From India, they must go to a secondary country. Only then they build their credit so that the Canadian government or the American or Australian government will say, oh, this person is good enough, he's traveled well enough, he can come to my country. So they use Malaysia as a second transit to the end goal, which is Canada. The funniest thing about this is, because we are not being valued by our government, our country, a lot of Malaysians also use this as a stepping ground to go there. A lot of my relatives, my father's side, half of my father's side is in Canada. And non-stop line, the family group is all about the bad news about Malaysia, top. Nothing nice about Malaysia. But 2 or 3 times a year, they are here in Malaysia. Every opportunity they get, they are here in Malaysia. I feel that we need to value ourselves, like what Malar is saying. If we are valuing ourselves and we understand where we are from and understand where we are, and we are stable and we are sure with our place in this country, we would not need another person, an outside person, to value us. Our value should be from within. It's very easy to look at it as a normal person, You should be valued for yourself. You should feel happy for yourself. If your happiness comes from another person, something is going to be wrong somewhere. But all of that said and done, I just want to just touch a couple of things. This married thing is not going to happen in Malaysia, because I think Arumugam, Arul and Mala already said, if you are not on the level playing field, don't talk to me about merit. Yeah, the quota system was supposed to help that out. The quota system was brought in because everybody starts at the different level. I am staying in PJ. I go to a private school. For sure, I will get 10 A's from SPM. My parents, I don't need to help my parents after school to sell newspaper, to deliver newspaper in the morning and then go to the stall in the evening. I will get 10 A's. We cannot say that I got the same exact opportunity as somebody who is in the estate. That one we have to be very clear. So if we want to make a system of quota system, it has to be proper. It cannot be the quota system is there, but if I know who to call, I know which line to pull, I will go into the university. So I think, to answer your question, are we valued as a community? Of course not. If we are valued as a community, we will not have this discussion. But I want to know who is valued as a community actually. Nobody is valued as a community. in this country, we value VIP, right? We don't value community. We don't value human beings. We value their bank account. We value their power and their status. We don't value the human being behind it, right? Our prime minister will drive past a traffic jam. You know, the police will move, and my prime minister, who should be serving me, is passing me through a traffic jam. Bro, sorry, Mr. Prime Minister, you stand behind me and you also come in the jam, so you will know that, oh, I need to go to Parliament and make sure this road is done properly. If not, I will be stuck in the jam. The question, he's not stuck in the jam. They are sitting in the ivory tower and they are giving the instructions, and we are here going through the struggle. So sorry for taking too much of time. I will pass it on to anybody else. Yeah.
I think for us in Project Bangsa Malaysia, this is one of our main causes lah. We say that, you know, we cannot rely on politicians. We have to empower each other. We have to create the opportunities for each other, and we have to make sure we can at least in some way replicate a system of meritocracy that can work and reward hard work and you know, stuff like that. And so that is something that definitely Project Bangsa Malaysia can identify with. But now on to Arul. Would you agree with what Gurpreet has said?
I think Gurmeet's analogy is really fantastic. Okay, but then I'm trying to raise some issues like what Selvamalar said. We Indians have to unite. My question is, unite against who? Do we unite against the Malays? Unite against the Chinese? Or we take care of ourselves? Because you see, this is the same narrative happens in the Malay community. Malay community wants to unite because they feel in the Raup issue recently, the durian issue, they think the Chinese have grabbed the land. So they feel they are though they are the majority race, they feel they are marginalized. They look at Ananda Krishna, they look at Tommy Thomas, they look at Tony Fernandez, they look at Ambiga. These are all great Indian leaders. They are running the country. So I'm trying to say is that, you know, when I speak to, because I am in, if you sit in a WhatsApp Indian group, this is, you only hear one story. And, you know, you only think Indian fellas are dying, Indian fellas got no food, Indian fellas are suffering, you know. You go to a Chinese group, you will know about only Chinese are suiciding today, you know, because they can't take it. So I think when I talk to my own experience talking to Malays tell me, they tell me always Indians are sangat united lah you orang, you know. Bukan macam kita Melayu sana sini pecah belah. Tengok ada PAS, ada UMNO. And then you talk to the Chinese, they will tell you, the Chinese community, Mr. Arul, so individualistic, you know, their own family member, they don't take care, not like your Indian community, you know. Everybody thinks, and we Indian fellas will say, look at the Malay fellas, every Friday they all go to temple, they pray together. So everybody sitting in their own avenue. So I think for me is what like Gurmeet said earlier, the question about marriage. If we go on marriage, there are rich Indians, there are poor Indians. There are rich Malays and poor Indians. But the problem is we are now so angry. We are now so angry with the Rohingya fellas. Because we cannot fight the other fellas, or we think Bangladesh fellas, Rohingya fellas, we you know, these fellas have now come to take our 6-7%. They have come inside and grabbing that, you know. So I think the biggest narrative for us as a nation is we must address all the issues. That is, custody is a serious issue, but it's not only an Indian issue. It must be seen as a Malaysian issue. You know, we must see poverty. Education must be accessible to all poor people. You know, if we make according to merits, maybe all the rich people sending from, you know, 4 years old, 3 years old, they send their kids to kindergarten tuitions and they spend 1,800 in kindergarten. Their children will get, you know, so it cannot be based on merit. It must be based on affirmative action. But affirmative action must ensure the poor Malays, poor Orang Asli, poor Indians, everybody. So we all must work towards that. You know, imagine in this group today, in this webinar today, we have one Chinese and one Malay. All of us will be talking something else. That's the only thing what we need. We need a bit of mixture, then we'll all talk like Malaysian. You put us all Indians, you ask what is our problem, this is what we get, you know. So I think this is for me the biggest issue is, what are the issues Indians facing? Discrimination and all that is true, you know. But then you don't go on asking MIC to solve your problem, IPF to solve your problem. So every party comes to power now. Now the fellas are telling, all the PH fellas are telling, what you Indian MIC fellas are doing. When PH was ruling, the MIC fellas was telling, what Kula, you had 4 ministers, what are you doing, you know? So they're not looking into it as a Malaysian problem, a poor people problem. We all have to address it. You see? So I think there is a lot of things we can do together. Put the priorities. I think we have to address Indian discrimination, you know. But then you cannot have 10 Indians sitting together and talking about Indian discrimination. Okay, you must break that. Then only you can build a Bangsa Malaysia, you know. I feel all the issues, all the great work, you know, like, you know, I remember Selvamalar when talking to Pasupati will tell, all those who do well in education, please don't send me. I want only gangsters, fellas who, you know, who got robbery case, slash case, this fellow sent to me, you know. So I think on the poor end, but also you see a lot of non-Malays, non-Indians are also studying in my skills, the number of them there, which is, I think this is where all of us have to play that role. So I'm very scared when I see sometimes this social media, that one fellow telling, Duli yang maha mulia, he'll start with that, you know. I'll get very worried because there's so much of, you know, and there's so many, not like us, Malays are doing the same thing in their webinar groups and all that. They are reinforcing the thing. They are telling that the Indians are, you know, taking away everything from them, you know. So I think, so a lot of things I think need to be put in perspective. History also need to be perspective. All over the world in ASEAN, people are Hindu. After that, they convert to Buddhist, they convert to Islam, you know. Parameswara is a Palembang, came from Palembang, never came from Tamil Nadu. But people don't know, you know, people think, oh, Parameswara is a Hindu, we rule the country. So people change religion because end of the day, religion is not important. What is important is food. You know, you change religion to get food. People convert to do things, you know. So religion is for me is all that okay important, but underlining important factor is food, a decent life, friends, you know. You know, I think that those are things. So I would like to put those issues in front, you know.
Yeah. So I just want to take a second to step back and applaud Mr. Arul, because it takes a wise head to understand where a discussion is going. And just like everyone, just like you've described, in all of our silos, when we start discussing our problems, it comes from a very genuine place. It comes from a very real place. And we are expressing our anger, we are expressing our disgust. And then in the end, we don't know how to channel this energy, channel this anxiety. And it's channeled towards the government needs to do this and they need to do that and whatnot. When in reality, you've hit it on, you've really identified the true problem, the fact that we actually have to come together as Malaysians. You know, we have to replace the VIPs with values and impacts and proper policies that really affect the rakyat on the ground. And so for that, I'm just very, very happy that we have Arul here today to join this discussion. But lastly, for this question, in terms of Malaysians, Indians feeling valued in Malaysia, Selvamalar, can you add to that?
Sorry. See, I personally think, I don't want to see valuing Indians, valuing Malays. They value Malays more than Indians. They value China. Let's just stop it. It's like, I personally feel like it's two perspectives, okay? It's how policymakers, or it's how the government, or it's how the general community sees. This is how I see. Again, I'm saying it's my personal opinion. I think they value the T20 and M40 of every community. So they love Indian doctors. They love good Chinese doctors. Or they love Malay professors. See, it's like a T20 and M40 of any community, any ethnics in Malaysia is valued to the max. And B40 of all communities, I don't want to just touch. It can be Asli, it can be, no, it's very glamour. When you work with Asli group, it's something very sexy, which I feel, come on, you have also B40 Malaysians, Malays, B40 Chinese, B40 Indians. So it's like you have a group, doing it. Okay, let's just push Aslis up. But actually, it's the same. So all B40 is the same. So I think the B40s are not valued. Let's be very clear about it. If they are valued, the PPR flats, the paintings will not only be done 5 years once. Okay, the piping system, you name it. Okay, I just don't want to go into details. But I personally feel they must be valued. All B40 must be valued. Okay, and even if you look at their criminal crime involvement, let's go to education. Since Mr. Arul has touched my skills, I have to talk about my skills. And I personally think it's not easy. Having these boys under our radar, I'm sure Mr. Arul will understand, it is not easy. It's purely 100% micromanagement. What we are doing is micromanaging. And we have come to a conclusion that specifically any B40 of any ethnic, they have to be micromanaged. Full stop. You want to transform, you don't transform them outside. You go to their area, their location, you transform them. You don't try to actually fit in or squeeze them into your requirements. You go there, you understand them, you build trust, you engage them, then you know the problems, then you will try to actually solve it. And this can be done. What I'm saying is almost 1,000 of our students have graduated from my skills for the past 12 years. And these fellows, almost 30% are working in Singapore, earning about like 2,000 ringgit in Malaysia. So what I feel is it's not like something like impossible. It can be done. But you must have heart, you must have passion, you must have this Bangsa Malaysia thing, and you must feel like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to help them. You have to do it. If you have that, I'm sure that everybody will be valued. As Malaysians, they will be valued.
Totally agree. When we are talking about this, it is about time we start talking about economics and development and how to really lift our youth and our rakyat, programs and micro plans and microeconomics that can really encourage this sort of economic wealth, right, and generate this wealth. And always it's identity politics, then it's this, it's never the economics and then the identity politics. But on to the third question, I feel a bit this is also, I guess, quite a direct question, but I hope that it will allow you to express some of your other sentiments. Do Indians feel discriminated against in Malaysia? Maybe I can start with you, Gurpreet.
Yeah, of course, we feel discriminated in Malaysia. I think taking what Arul is saying, I would like to just change the way I answer questions from now onwards. I don't think nobody is not discriminated. Everybody is discriminated in Malaysia. Let's get that right. Let's just put that out there. It's not a Indian issue. It's not a Chinese issue. It's not a Malay issue. Everybody gets discriminated as long as you are not in a certain place. You're not in a certain class. You get discriminated. I can be with the same friends standing on a pavement in Bangsa. No policeman will stop me. But I'm with the same friends standing on the pavement in Taman Medan, and the police will come and stop me. It's not a. I don't think it's a race thing. But to be very out there, I will just give 3 examples, personal examples. One is I was doing my master's in political science in UKM, and I'm in a classroom full of top-ranking government servants, and a comment is passed in the classroom, and it's laughed about. Ini negara kita, yorang kita kasih duduk saja. Jangan lupa, ini negara kita, kita sudah kasih yorang duduk sini, lagi apa yorang mau? Number 1, that is a comment that like hit me crazily. Nobody should be telling me that I don't belong in this country. Nobody. Because I do belong in this country. I was born here. My father was born here. My grandfather was born here. Even if I was not born here, I've contributed enough in this country for me to actually feel like I'm part of this country. That's number 1. Number 2 is I was interviewed and got interviewed with Lembaga Architect Negara. I got the job as a legal counsel there. After getting the job, after the guy, HR guy telling me you got the job, he told me, can you shave your beard? I said, no, I cannot shave my beard. He said, but we need you to shave your beard because you are meeting all these big top clients and all. You need to shave your beard. And I was like, it's a no-go lah. It's either I don't shave my beard, I don't get the job. I'm not going to shave my beard. And so they didn't call me back. And number three is just going back to the case of this Punjabi boy who was in national service and his hair got cut at night, late at night. One day, innocently, all these boys playing a prank, they cut his hair. And once his hair got cut, there was an uproar in the Sikh community, and Punjabi lawyers, everybody was there, and there was like they were going for it. But the question was to be asked, and I asked this question, and I still think this question is not answered till today. Why these boys cut his hair? Why these boys cut his hair? The reason these boys cut his hair is because they don't know that the hair is so important to the Sikh. Same like they don't know that ringing the bell is so important to the Hindus, or using the joystick is so important to the Buddhists, and the azan is so important to the Muslims. They don't know that. They don't know how important it is. And so it is our responsibility as a community to put ourselves out there. And I like how Maler was pointing out just now. I would like to differ. We are a community that has gone from heaps and bounds. I agree with you. But half, if not more than half of my community is waiting for a chance to leave. And that is why I say, yes, we are united, but we are united for ourselves, not for the country. And that is the difference. That's what we need to build. And I feel the government has to be active. And anybody who, knowing the government, anybody who is taking over the country needs to put this in mind. We need to consciously build relations between these people. Yeah, I need to have people know why I keep my hair, why I'm like this, why I look the way I look. That is very important. And I feel then the discrimination will become an issue of the past.
I think so. These examples hurt very deeply, and I think all of us have more than enough stories to share about our experiences when it comes to things like this. But I think as we have explained earlier, it's not very constructive to go down that path. Let me try a different question. Okay, let me try Kavita. What do you think is the Indian perspective on the idea of Bangsa Malaysia?
Indian perspective. I would say that definitely if we're going to divide, let's say the poor and the rich, I would say there will be a difference in opinions there. And if you're going to ask to most Indians in Malaysia, it's only going to be a handful of them who really feel for this country, who are really standing their point and saying that no matter what's going to happen, we are not going to leave this country. We are going to continue to prove that we are able to do great things. We will continue to do great things no matter what is being thrown at us. But if you're going to ask the same question to the other group from the poorer community, they wouldn't even bother. For them, they can't even have a proper meal in a day. So for them, that is more important. So when they don't have all these basic necessities provided to them properly, how are they even going to think for the country when their own family problems are not solved, when their own community or even in their own neighborhood, they face problems or hatred against each other? So how are they going to think for the country? So now I want to open up a question to all the panelists here. So some of you have said that not only Indians are being discriminated, all the other races are being discriminated, yes. But one thing that we all should also think that we are the minority, okay, probably the smallest percentage in the country. And we are, until today, for the past, I've been in this country for 31 years, and there are so many students with good scores, they still can't get into university. Why are we still facing this problem? There are so many other opportunities and we are still not given. Why are we still facing this problem? And I want to have another question to all of you. If all these Indians are given you are asking for equal opportunity. Okay, let's say we give you that. You want to have an equal education. Okay, let's say we give you that. We give you a better life. So would Indians change the mentality of thinking for the country? Would they or would they not? This question, I don't know how are we going to answer. So I really want to hear it from the other panelists.
Important question, extremely important question. I also think that, oh, you know what? Forget about my thought. I'd rather actually hear from Mr. Arumugam. Would you be able to directly answer the question posed by Kavita? Sorry,
I think these are not questions to be answered by any one of us. These are issues raised and the perspective of those issues. Like, for example, if you say that there is discrimination, I think we must admit that there is discrimination, because discrimination takes two shapes. One is structural discrimination, as in the Constitution by virtue of Article 153 and the kind of NEP policies, and of course there is a massive level of discrimination in favor of a single ethnic group, that is Bumiputra. So the Bumiputra and non-Bumiputra divide kind of sets the stage for discrimination across the board. And it has come to the stage that there is no time frame limitation to that kind of NEP policies, which the government actually should set. And I think the review should be based on whether it should be Bumiputra or poor. So there must be an identification in relation to the economic stratification rather than ethnic stratification, because having implemented this since 1970 over last about 41 years, and we are still claiming, like if you read Muhammad Abdul Khalid's book on Colors of Inequality, you see that the Malays are still the poorest. That means something is grossly wrong with the entire policy of NEP and the implementation of Article 153 in terms of affirmative action is flawed, is failed. It's just making the rich become richer, irrespective of whether they are Bumiputra, Malays, Indians, or Chinese. So the entire system is wrong. So how do we overhaul the system is a very big, huge question that can be posed. So in relation to just on that perspective, Indians as the identification, like though we having kind of engaged with Arul for many occasions, I am afraid to use the word that by virtue of me being an Indian and speaking on behalf of Indians rather than talking in terms of all the neglected of people living in the lower strata, but Indians is categorically formed one of the group which over the years somehow developed into the system as a kind of is unforgettable. You cannot forget about Indians when you talk about Malaysian population for whatever reasons, because his history, his population, his issues, and their contributions is very, very difficult. As such, you have to actually look at Indians' issues as Indian issues, but how do you want to handle it is different. You need a structural adjustment in the whole equation. If you fail to do that adjustment, like people like Selvamalar, who is running involved in the My Skills Foundation, how many students can she train? How much of resources she has to go and look for? This huge sum of money is needed to just transform one boy who is dropped out of school to become a skilled technician. So much of resources are needed. Unless a government takes over this massive job and honestly look into the problem of poverty groups, how do you deal with poverty groups, irrespective of race and religion, holistically, then there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Failing which, we will continue to have this kind of forums when 10 years, 20 years time, and we will still listen to the same story as what Muhammad Abdul Khalid wrote, that Malays are still the poorest. Even today's Malaysia Kini report, when you look at the stratas, Malays are still poorer than the Indians. The average poor Indian is much higher than the average Malay poverty. That means what the government knows very well that the system of implementing NEP is only help to make the rich become richer, middle class maybe a bulging middle class, the poor impoverished. So this we know. What is the solution? So the solution need to come from the not a small group of us talking here, even normal ordinary people on the street. No, the policymakers must come to the agreement that we need to relook at the NEP policy and how are we going to do the long-term planning in order for us to readjust the economic imbalance in the system, so the country can become more productive, stable, and then we can actually address poverty from a different perspective. That's it.
So in Bangsa, Project Bangsa Malaysia, we have values, impacts, and policies, right? And this is it, lah. This is the policy. And we hope to be able to one day be a part of that policy making process and have a structure. I mean, not us directly, but at least contribute in some small way to that happening. But now I want to speak to Selvamalar actually, because you are the impact part. You know, you are on the ground and you are directly changing people's lives. You are lifting people out of poverty, and you're providing them the tools to lift themselves out of poverty. Rather, what in terms of that, and in terms of your the idea of Bangsa Malaysia, what is your perspective?
Well, I just want to touch a bit on the discrimination part. You see, I personally feel discrimination is very subjective. You see, sometimes you get discriminated, sometimes another person feels like I don't get discriminated. I got the job, I got this, I got that. So it's very subjective. But of course, there is discrimination to different sectors. Maybe what Mr. Aru said is right. But what is more important is, I think, the discrimination within the community. Sometimes I remember doing a project with the poor, urban poor, about 1,000 families in 2018-19. So we tried a model for the Indian poor, a real poor, and we submitted that. And that was not actually taken into consideration. They didn't even look into it. So what I feel is that moment when we submit, I felt like, hey, you are discriminating me, man. I'm an Indian, you're an Indian. We are Malaysian at the end of the day. It's Malaysians are paying the tax money. So why don't you just have a look at it? So I personally feel like discrimination, I'm not going to say from this race to that race. I think some Malaysians, yes, they face discrimination. That's the bitter truth. And if you ask me about Bangsa Malaysia, I miss my university days. I love my university days. You know, all my friends, we used to buka puasa sama-sama. And I want to speak in Malay now, okay? Suka berseronok. I was the ketua block for my university. It was like 90% Malays. They all voted for me. Siapa campaign manager? Usni dari Kedah. And we did a lot of things. Banyak aktiviti yang saya buat di universiti, semuanya disokong sepenuh-penuhnya. Tidak kira bangsa, tidak kira agama. Pengalaman saya. Jadi saya pada pandangan saya rasa it will be very beautiful kalau saya tamatkan conversation ini dalam bahasa Melayu, kerana as a bangsa Malaysia, saya kena menghargai dahulu apa yang my friend is teaching. Kalau dia kata bahasa Melayu, till today saya boleh baca alif bata, because my Malay friends teach me alif bata. So I think a little bit of here and there, you know, sharing, even rasam, you know, curry puffs. So these are all like what makes us as Malaysians. So I feel like Bangsa Malaysia is acceptance, accepting us for who we are. Kita kena menerima dahulu. Kita jangan block, kita kena menerima dahulu orang itu. Walaupun dia hitam ke, dia putih ke, dia pakai serban ke, dia tak pakai ke, kita kena menerima dahulu. I think penerimaan itu sangat penting, and toleransi, of course toleransi you must give and take. You kena terima, you tolak ansur. But I tell you, I love COVID. This moment, I'm telling you, this moment I love COVID. Because COVID telah membantu untuk menunjukkan kita masih ada harapan, ya. Masih ada harapan among the Malaysians, because they don't see race, they don't see bangsa. I can see Pakcik Ali is giving food to Lechimi. Lechimi is giving food to Achong. They don't know who the donation is going to, they don't know. So I think there's slight hope. Bukan setakat tepuk tangan untuk Chong Wei punya badminton final match lah. Itu semua untuk 2 jam, 3 jam je kita tepuk, oh Malaysia, no. I think Bangsa Malaysia is what we are seeing now. Tapi even selepas COVID, kita kena kibarkan bendera putih. Itulah poinnya. Kita kena sentiasa bersama dengan masyarakat yang memerlukan. Terutamanya yang miskin, Tak kira etnik apa, Melayu ke, Cina ke, India ke, kita kena hulurkan. Yang penting kita kena tengok diri kita sebagai seorang Malaysia. Because I'm a proud Malaysian. I'm a proud Malaysian. I'm telling you, man, saya sangat bangga sebab saya seorang Malaysian. Even my mom, I agree with Gurpreet. My mom will be supporting. Oh, India must win the badminton match. I will like cheering for Malaysia, you know. So it's okay. For me, it's fine. Even my mom's era dah lepas tak apa. Tapi era kita, bangsa muda. Bangsa muda adalah bangsa Malaysia. We will make it happen. We will definitely make it happen. Kita akan bersama-sama membentuk bangsa Malaysia. Thank you so much.
I really hear the optimism in your voice, and I see it as well. Being part of kaum muda, I can see around me everywhere. Slowly lah, we are breaking this idea, we are breaking this ideology, and we are building that togetherness. Mr. Arul, would you be able to provide your perspective on the Indian paradigm of Bangsa Malaysia, or the Indian take of Bangsa Malaysia, Masyarakat India? Sorry, your mic, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to raise the question which Kavita posed the question, you know. I think like the problem is, if you ask me, discrimination exists, yes, it exists. Shouldn't deny it. But institutional discrimination is a systemic problem, you know. So for me, BRIM is a very good policy. Why is BRIM very good policy? It's not race-based. Whoever who are poor can apply for BRIM, right? Same like EPF. Whoever supposed to get EPF can get EPF. You don't go through. Government hospital is very good. Anybody who's sick can go to government hospital. So beautiful. The problem happens when there is discrimination. Maybe 30% houses are allocated for Bumiputra. University places. These are where I think there are issues. So the whole thing is not bad. Now to address this issue, who are our allies? All the Indians going to take and fight the 6-7% going to sit down together and say, okay, from tomorrow we all, you know, give birth to 10 to 20 children each and then try to build the population. What is our solution? You know, so I think there are people like us. I think you know, for example, in 1947, under the People's Constitution, they wanted to form a commission where race-based problems should be sent to the commission to discuss. For example, one Indian fella marry a Malay woman because of love, and the whole nation is fighting, isn't it? You know, who the child must go, you know, custody right, all these things. It is actually a family problem, you know, but here it is like a war between two ethnic groups, you know, and then you have rallies and all that, you know. So what we need is basically a commission where all the races sit down, discuss. I mean, there are people there, sit, look into the issue, solve it. I think it can be done. No? So institutional changes need to be done to address racism. But who are our allies? We need to find the Malays, the Chinese who think like us, you know, and I'm sure there are people like that. But sometimes, you know, we overdo it. We just talk about our own issues, you know. One lady telling, Indian fella telling, we are the one who made rasam. One Malay lady telling she's the one who made rasam, and the whole society is fighting over it. You know, I mean, those kind of things. It will be easier to be dealt with. You know, because those kind of thing I don't see is a big discrimination. These are actually people who are frustrated, you know, frustrated. Like what Selvamalar says, and during this COVID, we see that the poor people, food bank and all that, you know, a lot of poor people during tsunami also like that all over the world. Governments never react, you know. Government, you know, but the common people, they will react because it comes straight from the heart. So I think this is the kind of energy we must unite, and we must deal with discrimination. You know, when Ganapati died, there were many Malays people who also spoke about it. It's very nice to hear when a Malay speak about Ganapati's death than to hear an Indian fellow talking about Ganapati's death. You know, so similarly, Malays also would like to hear Indians talk about Malays who are discriminated, like what Arumugam said just now, that majority Malays are the poverty in this country. You know, this are, I think, very critical issues, And when we bring it up, Indians bring up about Malay content, that is how. So we need allies. I think first thing, no, I agree with everybody, there is discrimination. Okay? But this discrimination is institutional discrimination. That means it's from the top. It is planted there, so you fight with each other, So if you fall in that game, you became more racist, means the state agrees, their agenda achieved. If you start talking about your own race, fighting with each other, means everybody's happy. Like the British discriminated the Malaysians so much. I mean, the Japanese discriminated, came to Malaysia, colonized people. People don't worry about the Japanese because that fella bring investment here, they're okay friends already, But among the Malaysian, you got so much of hatred. Who made the rasam? Who made nasi lemak? This kind of issues. So for me, is Article 153 very interesting. Article 153, first line says, tugas yang di-Pertuan Agong adalah menjaga hak keistimewaan orang Melayu. So if you read 153 alone, first line alone, discrimination. If you read the second line, it says, tugas yang di-Pertuan Agong adalah menjaga kepentingan kaum-kaum lain di Malaysia. If you read Article 153, 1 and 2 together, it means the tugas yang di-Pertuan Agong adalah jaga kepentingan semua orang. Finish. But then, all the groups, they only talk about one part of it, take that one part, amplify it so big, we are discriminated, so we should say, the 153 is actually saying they must be read together. Constitution Article 8 talks about on anything, on job and everything, you shouldn't discriminate people. It talks about everything is there. So I think we need to build this Bangsa Malaysia, but we have to first argue this argument with our own Bangsa, not reinforce this thing, If we go on, all of us go back and reinforce this thing, the Malays will also do that because they see the Indians are like that. The Malay, they will also do that. When Hindraf did the rally, so many Indians were so proud. But Malays were so worried. Wow, there's Indians in this country. Then when Malays do the Kebangkitan Melayu or Perhimpunan, all the Indians are so unhappy, Why are they gathering, When your own race gather, they think, wow, power, unity, all these things. So this is wrong, We should unite for a common cause. We must unite together against racism, So I would feel we have to get our ally, okay, from outside. Yeah.
I have a confession to make. I wish I could speak. I wish I could listen to Mr. Arul speak, the whole night and for as long as as much as he wants. It is really visionary because it goes beyond our problems. It contextualizes our problems, shows how petty it is, shows how it's actually really easy for us to come together. We can if we want to. It's senang je to build this Bangsa Malaysia. It has to come from the heart, and we already are so alike. We see each other in our Malay and Chinese and East Malaysian brothers and sisters. But okay, now since we have to go on with this discussion, Gurpreet, do you have to add what do you think is the Indian perspective on the idea of Bangsa Malaysia?
I think the main thing that actually Kavita brought a very good point just now, and to answer that question, I think generally Indians are very loyal. We are very loyal people. We want to be loved, and when we are valued, we repay it with a lot of loyalty, as you can see in the wars that the soldiers and how the British has used us as very loyal people. So I think if we are valued here, there is no reason why we need to leave this country. If we feel like we belong in this country, there's no reason for us to leave this country. But I think the main thing that makes up Bangsa Malaysia from an Indian perspective, I will say is brotherhood or fraternity. Yeah, that is the main thing that we will look at to be able to start life at to reach at 9 after you finish SPM or after you come out from university, to be at a level playing field, brotherhood, like that all of us understand each other, and this brotherhood can also be brought about when our schools represent the larger community outside of Malaysia, and outside of the country lah. I mean, outside of the country, outside of school. Even the school, you are just with a certain race and a certain type of people. Then when you go out of school, you will behave differently. That's why I'm totally opposed to private schools and home schools and all, because it doesn't represent the society that you will be outside of your school. Because you are with all these people who are just the way you are. Every day you drink the Starbucks and you live that way. So when you go out into society, you cannot, very difficult. So for me, the schools need to be a clear representation of how the country is. And for me, the main thing again is brotherhood and fraternity. I just need to make a very quick point. Today's discussion is coordinated by Project Bangsa Malaysia, and is not a silo session. It is a session. A lot of people have been messaging me, asking me, is Bangsa Malaysia, but why only Indians only? No. This is an ongoing session. Like Arumugam was saying, they are tirelessly doing it every night. Today, they just decided to bring all the Indians together to have a discussion about the Indian community. It's not like a separate thing lah. It is a thing that they are building. Project Bangsa Malaysia Power is and Abim are really trying to push this beautiful idea. And today they just want to hear from the Indian community. I just want to say that. Yeah. So
thank you so much.
and fraternity.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gurpreet, for helping me out. Yeah, I probably should have explained earlier that this is all a part of Project Bangsa Malaysia, where we're trying to bring people together. And for this particular session, we just want to put the spotlight on the Malaysian Indian community. As much as we like, our society is organized in some way through a racial lens. So we want to listen to the opinions of one of the minorities in Malaysia. But now on to just before we wrap up, I guess, does anyone have any closing remarks or would like to answer any other questions from Facebook? Or there are a couple of questions down in the chat box as well. If there's anything that has caught your eye, please just feel free to share. I know that Mr. Arumugam replied to some of the messages, but yes, Kavita.
One thing I would like to highlight that I think it's very important for us to begin even at school level. So I think it's important for all the races to understand each other culture or each other religion practices, or because we wouldn't have someone at working level, they wouldn't like asking me a question, oh, you Hindu, tak boleh makan lembu? So we don't want to face that kind of question, but we have to know what Muslims or Malay community are sensitive of. So it should be vice versa. So we should know who we are living together with, so we should understand, and so that we wouldn't like hurt them, or we say things that would actually purposely hurting them. I think that shouldn't be the case. So I think all of us should understand each other and make sure to learn that what other race or other religion are practicing, so that we could understand better. That would actually bring us closer, rather than just separating moral studies is only for non-Muslims, while the Malays go study their Islam religion, but it shouldn't be like that. But in Sejarah, we have to read 4 to 5 chapters about Tamadun Islam, but it shouldn't be it should be different. So our education, it should be changed for so many decades ago, but it's not happening. I hope that will bring some change. And we are not even studying the world history. I think that's one of a big problem, that it helps us to understand the community better. And also I noticed Batmawati has been talking about Bangsa Malaysia atau Orang Malaysia. I think I would like to probably I will share what I feel about Bangsa Malaysia. So when you fill up a form, we have this race, religion, or whatever, right? So if we want to eliminate the differences between a Malay, Chinese, or India. We want to eliminate that, and we just want to take Malaysia. So that's what Bangsa Malaysia is all about. So when we remove all these kind of differences, even in formal application, this will definitely help us to go far in future. And I think how Malaysia can prosper together is by the nilai yang kita perlu disemaikan ialah color blindness. So if we can do this, I think we can go for even we can achieve greater things in future.
Perfect, beautiful remarks. Mr. Arumugam, I think you replied to one of the messages, one of the comments. Maybe you want to just explain why that question was intriguing to you and your response.
I don't know which question was that.
Oh, okay.
No mind, you remember the question? I forgot.
No, actually, I think I have passed it.
No mind, it's okay. I just want to thank you, Harmeet and Gurpreet, Kavita, and Selvamalar for joining this forum. I learned quite a bit from different perspectives. And thank you very much for having me, y'all.
Okay, but before we do a closing remarks yet, can I get from each one of you all maybe two words that summarizes what Bangsa Malaysia means to you? Maybe I can start with Selvamalar.
You're not giving me time to think. So many words running in my mind. I don't know which one to pick.
I go first.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but I also, just a quick correction. The two words just a recommendation lah. It's just
okay. Can be as well. Okay. I think the number one word for me will be service. Service will be number one because I would recommend service leadership. I would recommend serving each other as one. That is my main one. And then number two, like I said just now, brotherhood. And since you gave me an additional one, I would like to say love. Actually, pure, unadulterated love for your country, for the people. The country is only made of the people in the country. So the country means the people in the country. So I will not say that this is a forum with my friends. This is a forum with my family because I love all of you all like my family because I love this country. So I love the people in my country. So three things are love, brotherhood, and service.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, now I'll continue.
Yes, your views on what the common values that form the basis of Bangsa Malaysia.
Okay, before going that, I just envisioned one. I've actually written to RTM about 3-4 years ago asking for a channel, for multiracial channel, one radio channel that will have Indian hosts, Malay hosts, Chinese hosts, Sarawakian hosts, and everybody. So everybody tuned to only that channel. But okay, rest is history. But I'm just proposing it to Project Bangsa Malaysia. Okay, now what I'm saying is, let's be human first. Let's be human first. Let's be not just human. The second part is more than human. So when you become just human and you will start seeing things differently. You won't see a person as a Chinese, a Malay, or Indian. You just feel like, hey, I'm a human. I'm born with some good values. I'm born with some values, innocent child, And let's every human being in Malaysia, every citizen in Malaysia, can be any race. They must first see themselves as a human, and I have to help a fellow human being. It can be politicians, it can be policymakers, it can be professionals, it can be T20, M40, B40, but we must see each other and be a human being first. Then everything will fall to its place, and we will be definitely reaching Bangsa Malaysia.
Hopefully with the multiracial television channel as well. Mr. Arul, your views on what the common values that form the basis of Bangsa Malaysia?
Can I just relate some stories?
Yeah, please do.
You see, there was last time during the hudud time in Malaysia, there was a big argument, we know the Malays and the non-Malays, politicians fighting each other. Then a dialogue was held in Chinese Assembly Hall. Everyone thought people are going to fight. And that was such a decent discussion between Malays and non-Malays on the issue of Islam, on hudud and all that, So sometimes bringing together people solves problems. During Kampung Medan thing, Arumugam was involved. Arumugam is from Orang Tempatan Kampung Medan. During that time, the Indians and Malays, there were a lot of gangsters from outside coming in, fighting that time. That time we decided to do one march where it's a multiracial group of people, about 80 people walked one day into Kampung Medan. Suddenly you don't feel any fear when you're in a multiracial group entering into a kampung. Imagine only Indians entering the kampung, or Malays won't enter, but because we come up with an idea, let's go in together and address it. Our fear diminished, the people there have hope, And I want to tell you just one last story. Last time in Kampung Berembang, this is a Malay kampung in the heart of near Ampang, Almost everyone, it's 100% Malay majority kampung. The people who are trying to evict these fellas were a Malay company belongs to UMNO. Okay, UMNO company wants to evict Malay people. They got this Rela fellas, Chinese Rela people. They employed Chinese Rela to evict them. And myself, I was with one a group of Penuraka Banda were with the Malay Kampung tried to defend them. There's one Chinese person by the name of Ang, And he was sitting in the Malay man house, protecting the Malay man house. During that time, when the Rela came, the Malay owner, the Malay man sitting in the house, shouted at the Rela, China Bobby, Bobby, Then I called him. I told this Malay man, I said, what about this guy who's sitting with you in the house, When he saw this Mr. Ang there defending his house, he just broke down and cried. This Chinese man, this Malay man just broke down and cried because for him, it's there in his head, because we haven't found areas where to build. We all of us, I think, love to hear interracial. Every time there's a story, a Malay man helping Indian family, we're all so happy about it. Share the story, So I think these are good incidents. So there are main crises. And you see, going back to the original of the Kampung Brembang, victim are Malay, the fellow exploiting them is rich Malay. They use the Chinese Rela fellow to fight among themselves, So I think for me, the concept of Bangsa Malaysia is once you mix all the races together and we discuss things, we can solve all the issues. How to distribute food, we can solve. Intermarriage, everything can be resolved. Okay, I think so. I think we have a big task in Bangsa Malaysia to build this. Yeah.
When I see you, Arul, I feel inspired enough. I feel ready for the challenge, and I'm very glad that you are with us. But yes, end to Pacha and Perintah once and for all. I think a lot of people can agree with that. Kavita?
Some of the values we can adapt to form Bangsa Malaysia or to further bring togetherness among us is that we should embrace diversity and we should practice fairness. Thirdly, we should also we should come together. We should do a teamwork to form a better nation. And lastly, we should have courage to be able to jump into this or to be able to transition into this change. So when we have all these values in us, we'll be able to form a beautiful country. And Malaysia is beautiful because of all of us, each and every one of us. And please don't be surprised. Orang Melayu tolong orang India, jangan, orang Melayu boleh cakap bahasa Tamil, orang Cina boleh cakap bahasa Melayu. We don't have to be surprised because we are here, we have been for so many years, we are multiracial, multicultural. Of course, we would know each other languages. I don't think we have to be surprised by that. So don't act surprised. So and it's nothing wrong for you to teach your children of how the other cultures are practicing rather than you scaring them. Please stop fear and teaching fear on your children because you fear of something when you don't know. So start learning and then you're able to understand and teach the right things to your children. Yeah, that's all.
Amazing. Actually, one of the things that I've learned a lot from Mr. Nat, but one of the things that he said is that there's no English translation for gotong royong. It's a purely Malaysian concept, people coming together to have in a micro form to really uplift that small that area. And yes, okay, lastly, Mr. Arumugam, your views.
I'm actually pretty excited because all the young people got a very high idealistic perception about how they want to see Bangsa Malaysia. I concur with all their views. Perhaps one of the things that is very difficult, but we can aspire is to abolish identity-based politics. You ban the ethnicity-based political parties, and whether we can come to the stage where we can remove our identity as Indian, Malay, or Chinese from whatever forms that we fill up, wherever such identity is needed to be documented, that should be removed, and we should be called as Malaysians. Whether we are bold enough to take that kind of positions will be also important. But these are things which demand a massive understanding of how we want to move forward. I think that's this rests more with the younger generation to build up that kind of perception. On the part of institutionalized poverty eradication through Article 153 and things like that should be strictly, or rather, are we prepared to relook at the constitution and amend in relation to just eradicate poverty irrespective of identity? Like, you don't have to spell out that, no, this Article 153 should be specifically targeting a specific group, but rather the group which lives in poverty. That means irrespective of ethnicity or identification of race, the kind of affirmative action should be targeting to help the poor, be it the largest beneficiary be the Malays. Can that be done? So these are the ways how we can go about to dismantle ethnicized structure, administrative structure of the government and the mindset of people. So until such a time that this can be built into the systemic agenda, these kind of narratives can never be built up. Otherwise, like we keep filling up forms like I'm a Malay, I'm a Chinese, I'm an Indian, and voters are already the delineation exercise is done in such a way that you know how we are grouped together in all the constituencies. So who can win the election is predetermined. Which ethnicity can take the majority vote. So it's a very long call, but we should aspire to change the future of this nation for everyone. Thank you.
I totally agree. I actually remember from another Siri Dialog Bangsa Malaysia, Mr. Arumugam, he spoke about biodiversity and the forest, how it's only sustainable if you have all sorts of diversity, and it's almost like a balancing act in that ecosystem, and it's the same with Malaysia as well. And with that, I just want to ask the rest of the panelists, any last remarks or points before we end this session? Yeah. Okay, so in that case, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Salam
Thank you so
Bangsa
much.
Malaysia.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Let's give a more dramatic ending, Hamid. Oh, this has been a wonderful session. Terima kasih banyak kepada semua yang amat baru dan memberikan semangat untuk terus berjuang.
Kibar bendera.
You must put your hand like this. You did an excellent job, Hamid. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the panelists. We really learned a lot. It's really interesting. I just had a funny idea thinking of listening to this thing. I was like, hey, maybe next time we should advocate, when they say the race on the form, next time we should give two options. Bangsa, it is Malaysia, dan lain-lain. So this will be where we thought of the idea. So thanks very much. Thank you so much, everyone. We really, really appreciate it. It's really great to meet with old friends and to make new friends. Very happy. And thank you, Hamid. You did an excellent job. Putting it all together. Julian, Goshen, of course. Always appreciate it. Okay, it's 10:15, so I think we're just gonna stop the live stream. Once again, and all of you on Facebook, thanks for staying with us for all this while. I really appreciate it. Sorry we couldn't get to all the comments and questions, but maybe the panelists can go through the page and maybe give some answers there. We really appreciate the feedback, and we'll try and put it as part of our process. Okay, thanks very much, guys. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.